I want to begin this video with a message before we get into the usual stuff, because this is too important to ignore. As I'm filming this video, it is Tuesday, June 2nd, 2020, and people in America are hurting. Yet another innocent life was taken unjustly, and the course of actions that follow were just the most recent outcry for help from a marginalized group of Americans, of humans. Racism is poisonous and survives generations, leaving a deep imprint that will be hard to level. The streets are bleeding, and the damage has shaken everybody. Some obviously more than others. And fed up people were not met by unity, but by division, by show of force rather than understanding. Curfews have now silenced the streets. With fires now ceased, it's important the message doesn't get mixed into that and also doesn't turn to ashes. The internet is now our world, our imprint, our document, so let's make our voices heard there. Even if it may not be the final frontier forever, we can only hope. And all we can do, especially us that create, inspire through imagination and storytelling, is to make our voices heard in the best way that we know how, through our form of expression. And this is what led me to make the map painting that you're about to see. It's not the most uplifting, and it's definitely a reflection of my personal anguish and my fear, but it's a very possible outcome when fear and anguish does govern our choices. As someone was able to spray paint in this imaginary world the words "never stop loving" on this rooftop to maybe a panicked crowd that could not be saved, we should also embrace that feeling and move with love and empathy. So with all that being said, as you may have noticed, this video is sponsored, this video is being monetized. And in light of the topic and what we have seen in the past week, I have decided to donate all of the proceeds made from this video to very important causes that could really use your help during this time if you are in a position to help. And I'm going to leave links to charities that we have vetted, that we have done background on. It's safe to donate. You know it's going to go to a good cause. So you're going to find all those links in the description. So let's get started with the video, and I do hope you find some value in this video and the things that we're going to be exploring together, and hopefully you can use these ideas and these tools to tell your own side of the story. To rewind things a little bit, the concept started when I first got a box from an online delivery I made, and it came with this cardboard padding on the sides, and when laying them flat, it kind of looked like walls of a fort. And the current political climate definitely highlighted a weaker side of humanity that I wanted to put in the themes of this map painting. So the idea of division, of borders, and these sort of confines were there from the very beginning to sort of inspire the theme and the feel of the overall map painting.
Ew! Who would that be up here?
I like to keep things. Sometimes they're useless, sometimes they come in handy. So we're going to try to do some kind of layout, get the nice perspective going to match what we'll be doing for a map painting, get a shot up here, and it's just going to serve as having some real elements that we can build on top of. Might be just framework, might be just the bones, might not be used at all, but at least it's just a starting point. And it's just a way to get creative and just start the process somewhere. And this map painting was actually unique to me as far as the process of making it, because it was the first time that I laid out physical things to give me a sense of depth, of perspective, of space, and I found it to be really, really useful, not just for organizing my frame and the things in it, but also for lighting, for getting real lighting that hits these cardboard pieces that eventually get turned into walls. So all of that lighting is behaving properly, and it's also a great point of reference to understand the direction of your source and apply that also for the rest of the map painting.
Yeah, see, this side is way better, I think. Just switch that.
So once we have the desired reference picture, we can jump into Photoshop and get started there. Now, my canvas is going to be quite large, and I really suggest that you start from 4K and above, because again, these map paintings are not just for what you're outputting to in terms of resolution, but also they need to account for potential zoom-ins or some sort of animations. And typically, the more higher detail of a canvas you have, the more it's going to look better and more realistic once you shrink it down to whatever output you want. So I'm going to bring in my reference photo and I'm just going to quickly make an adjustment. I'm just essentially duplicating it and squishing two sides of the foreground and background closer together to get a more extreme perspective and heighten the sense of distance that we have in the frame. Secondly, I'm going to import individual photos of just the wall assets, so just the cardboard pieces by themselves, so that I can isolate them. And one thing that we'll have to do right off the bat is just some minor adjustments with the Liquify tool, and I'm just going to use that to essentially distort this image in order to push and pull in certain directions to adjust some of the lines and make them straighter, since we are getting a lot of bends from the cardboard. Next here, I'm just playing around with ideas and just adding structure to this wall. You can see here it's starting to look a little bit too medieval, but I'm not too worried right now on dimensions and getting every detail just right. I think the most important part in the first stages of a matte painting is to just throw down all of your ideas as quickly as possible in order to achieve sort of that flow state and just move through and just try to get everything down before it kind of blurs out of your head. And then you can, of course, always go back and add details and add polishing touches and readjust lighting like we'll see in just a bit. Then what I like to do is add a sky and a ground. And even though I ended up switching this sky for a different mood, it's still nice to just put something there and get it close to looking like a landscape. Next up is the ground, and I'm just gonna duplicate it and sort of blend them together so that I can extend it a little bit more. And now you can start to see how these cardboard elements and just a ground plane is already giving us a great starting point, so that we have essentially a blank world that now we can fill in with story, with the right mood, and with the rest of the elements. And this is when I'm going to start to bring in elements from Yellow Images. And just to give you an idea, these are all of the car and building elements that I use from Yellow Images. And all of these are really great because they're really high quality, and they can very easily adapt to foreground elements that are really close up to, camera in the matte painting, or to distant objects. So it was really great to play with that extra resolution. Another big plus is that, as you can see, these are from the 360 section of the marketplace on Yellow Images, and what this allows you to do is to actually rotate these elements so you can match the perspective and the direction to what you need for your painting. As you can see here, they have a ton of stuff ranging from all kinds of elements. And this is just, again, one section of the marketplace. That's why I love Yellow Images. It's great to browse on there and just find the right assets that you need. And this also applies to object mockups, which is definitely one of their strongest points. And in my opinion, they do offer some of the best high quality mockups, so that if you're developing a product or anything like that, you can pretty much find any kind of object that you can then customize to fit your branding. Then I also used some overlay assets from the creative store part of Yellow Images, and these for me were these overlays, these smoke and atmospheric elements that definitely helped the matte painting in terms of creating separation and just adding to the whole sense of atmosphere. And finally, a new section that they recently added that I just recently found out as I was making this video, which is really, really cool, is the Creative Fonts library. And here you will see fonts like you have never seen, and it honestly feels like a playground if you want to do motion graphics or some creative title work and not have to put in the hours and hours to even make one of these letters. They have so many different creative textures, and I mean, you could just see for yourself just in the examples here. There's just a lot definitely that you could pull off with these fonts. So that is Yellow Images. That is obviously the sponsor of this video and also what made the matte painting possible, as all of the elements that you're seeing, cars and buildings, were from them. But they were also super cool since obviously we started this collaboration way before any of the current events started, and they immediately agreed to supporting the cause. So aside from me personally really recommending them as a platform, I'm really happy that they decided to show their support and allow me to freely share how I feel and my sentiment about the current injustices that we face in America today. Alright, so with all that being said, I just want to give you a quick overview of what the platform is, what it offers. Now let's go back into the matte painting and let's see how we can put these elements to use. So I'm going to start by dropping in this motel sign and just adding a bunch of cars. So as I'm going to start to add elements, what really helps a lot is to make your whole canvas black and white temporarily, just so you can focus on dropping these elements in, so that you can just focus on placement and just adding a very basic brightness and contrast correction to each of these layers, just to get a better and rough sense of proper integration. And I'm going to keep repeating those steps for every asset that I'm adding in. And of course, all of this will be corrected much more in detail and will be relit in some cases later on. So I'm going to let the rest of this time lapse kind of speak for itself. A few things that I want to point out, I'm repeating essentially the same steps. A lot of things that really help is adding mats so that you can actually non-destructively paint out or in certain parts of these assets that you're bringing in. And that will also help to blend them into the ground or to even blend atmospheric elements into different portions of the map painting.
I have something to ask you that I couldn't back then. I am over it now. If I'm one of your children, if I'm right or I'm wrong, should it matter at all? And I wandered too far. Will you let me back in? Or will you call me a Thomas or a Peter or Judas? Will you call me a friend? Or will you send me to hell for the ways that I'm different, for the hopes you put in me, for the doubts in my mind, for my passage through time, for the place I was born in, for the home I was raised in, and the people who love me. Do you love me at all?
Now, since most of this that we've been watching is just placement, I just want to point out that now I'm moving into what I mentioned in the beginning, which is relighting and just adding a little bit more of dimension, a little bit more depth, and also a lot more light interaction, as this seems to be a very dusty, polluted place. So it's important to kind of give that feel and add all those details, add all those particle interactions with, for example, light rays streaming through the clouds, hitting this building, creating shadows on the negative side, I guess, of these vehicles and all of that. So all of this just helps the world amalgamate better together and give a full cohesive feel. And aside from relighting, as you saw with the color correction, adding film grain, adding some chromatic aberration, all these sort of final adjustments once you're close to being done with your map painting will also serve in bringing everything together and giving it an overall texture that really brings all the elements closer to one image. Lastly, as I mentioned in the beginning, I wanted to add this graffiti that reads "Never Stop Loving," and this was important to just kind of add a final highlight, a final touch to what the theme and what this video and what this map painting is about. But after all of that, after 3 days of pretty much non-stop work on this map painting, it is finally complete. Alright guys, that is what I wanted to share in the creation of this map painting. Hopefully out of a really, really bad situation, we can maybe do some good. So like I said in the beginning of the video, I've listed some charities that could definitely use your help in the description. And let's just remember to keep empathy alive. Fear and division leaves us a world that looks like this. And I think that we are way smarter than that, even when our leaders may not be so. So it's important to take that responsibility, take care of our own communities, of our own neighbors, and just try to do what we can. So thank you for watching this video. My name is Kriscoart for Kriscoart, and I will see you next time.
Officers that were seen on that video have now been charged.